Welcome to Family Lifestyles. I'm Lynn, Blankenship, the Extension Agent for Family and Consumer Sciences Education in Metcalfe County, and today I'm joined by Janarae Conway, who is the Branch Manager for Preparedness and Response with the Barren River District Health Department. Welcome, Janarae.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
What are we going to talk about today?
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about resolving with the new year, resolving to actually be ready for emergencies.
Okay.
And so we're going to, some of these things we've talked about before, but we always want to reiterate some of these in how to be prepared. And this may be the year that you resolve to actually complete some of these tasks. And you may have already started, so how about make this the year that you finish it up and you are prepared. Good. So some things to kind of think about in making this resolution is putting together an emergency plan. Keep and update your emergency supplies. So if you've already started putting together an emergency supply kit, we're going to remind you to make sure to go back and check those supplies and update those. And then sign up for alerts, warnings, and something we don't talk about a lot of times is being financially prepared. So we're going to touch on that a little bit here too. Okay. And then talk a little bit about some trainings that folks could get involved to maybe help them be better prepared for when emergencies happen.
Great. So some of the things that need to be considered, you said go back and check your kit. If you had a kit together, you want to make sure, what are you looking for when you do that?
Well, one of the things is to check on expiration dates. Mm-hmm. Do like what we pulled out. I pulled this bleach out, set it on the table, and realized that it has a small leak in it. Making sure that you're checking for those kind of things as well. If you've got food or water, making sure to rotate that out about every 6 months.
Okay, and then anything that requires batteries, I would imagine you would want to test those batteries. Yes. Or put new batteries in with it.
Exactly.
That's important.
Yeah, you want to check those batteries. Always have an extra set of batteries in your kit anyway. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times actually recommend to folks, if you've got a kit that you keep a flashlight in there, don't actually keep the batteries in it because they will corrode.
They will.
So I really just recommend that you not do that. This particular weather radio is actually got rechargeable batteries in it that are recharged either by plugging it up, solar panel, or we've got a nice little crank. So I actually recommend if you can find a weather radio, or this one is a kind of a several multi-purpose. It's got an AM, FM, as well as the weather channel.
So if you're stranded or stuck, you can you can kind of get the news. You can have access to what's going on outside.
Exactly. And this particular one also has a flashlight on it.
I was
so
just
that's really kind of
nice. We have
nice.
a flashlight with a crank on it.
Yes.
It's got the solar and the crank and the battery options so that you can always be able to have light.
And this particular one too, because communication is extremely important as well, is that this particular one you can also have USB. A cord with the USB where you can plug it in here and you can charge your cell phone.
Oh, yeah.
So you make sure you still got communication or entertainment. You know, because a lot of times we use these for entertainment as well. So making sure that you have those. And of course, communication is part of the steps that you want to go through. So when you're making a plan, communication is part of that plan. And then you want to discuss and put questions together to ask your family, like, how will I receive emergency alerts and warnings? You know, I've got something on my phone to where it comes on the phone. Most of us have that already built in. The other thing would be the weather radio. You can get weather alerts through that. What is your shelter plan? Where are you going to shelter? Do you shelter in place? Where at in your home are you going to shelter in place? If you've got to evacuate, knowing what your evacuation routes are, not only out of your home, but out of your community is extremely important. And then your family household communication plan, we talked a little bit about that. You know, if you're not at home all together, that maybe someone's at home, someone's at school, someone's at work.
Where are you going to meet?
Where are you going to meet up? How are you going to communicate? Text usually does a lot better than voice during an emergency, so keeping that in mind. And then also too, making sure, as we talked about, your emergency kit. In the emergency kit, as well as your planning, make sure that you keep in mind specific needs. If you have an infant or young child, make sure that you have items for them in your kit. If you've got someone in the home that's on a lot of medication, make sure that you have 3 days to a week supplies in your kit, but also have a copy of your prescriptions so that if you are in a shelter situation that you're able to actually use those and show those to the doctor so that they know exactly, okay, yeah, I'm on this little blue pill. Well, which little blue pill are you on? Because depending on which stage of levothyroxine you're on, as far as your thyroid medicine, that's going to be one color, and it could be the same as maybe someone else who is on prostate medicine. You got to be careful about those little white and saying that. So have those prescriptions exactly so they know how much that you're on and once you're on it. And then,
can we revisit one thing? I had so when you're making determinations about sheltering in place, what are you kind of looking at? Like, does your house have a basement? Do you have a storm shelter? If not, then you need to find somewhere that has a safer space to go.
And it really depends on what you're going to be sheltering from. A lot of times people think shelter in place is going to be from tornadoes. That's not the only thing. There's also earthquakes that could occur, and there's also chemical spills. And you want to keep in mind, if you have a basement, usually for chemical spills, that's not where you want to go. But for tornadoes, below ground is better. But if you don't have a basement, then you need to be on the lowest level of your home. Do not get in your crawl space. That is not the safe place to be in a tornado. Be in the center of your home, away from windows. In being in the center, a lot of times a closet, or even if a bathroom is in the center of the home, those things are going to still be standing when the tornado goes through.
So even with like a mobile home, that would be the recommendation.
For a mobile home, you really need to have an alternate location
So the recommendation is to get out.
Yes, is to get out. And actually do that before a tornado warning is issued. I recommend that you follow your local weather when storms start coming up. A lot of our television and radio stations will go live and are giving information out. So I really recommend that you track that and see where that is going. And there are trainings actually that the National Weather Service does online that you can do to learn more about what to look for as far as the signs of a storm coming through. And so when those signs come, you don't always have very much time to really react. So I really recommend, if you're in a mobile home, if there's a severe thunderstorm warning with the potential of a tornado, you may want to go find an alternate location. Go stay with a friend. Someone who has got a house or something. Or
the emergency shelter system.
Or emergency shelters that might be in your county, Because I know Metcalfe, Barron, and Warren have those. Some of the other counties have some, but not as many as those three counties.
Yeah, we're fortunate in Metcalfe County that they're situated in areas where there are a lot of mobile homes. So they put them strategically
where those mobile homes are. And once you have these plans, your plans in place, once you know where you're going to be sheltering, really recommend that people practice that with the family. Go over it. You want to practice it. Same thing that the kids do. The kids practice fire drills. They practice tornado drills. They practice earthquake drills. Practice those at home as well. And get especially your young children that are preschool age, you may want to get them used to doing that so that when they get to school, it's not traumatic for them. Yes, very much so. I learned that the hard way. And then the other thing that I said we were going to talk about in this segment is financially prepared. And basically it's, gather critical information about your bank account, about your just documentation in general that you would need to have if you've got CDs, if you've, other things. Make sure you have those documentation in an area where you can take that and grab and take it with you.
So if something happens to your house, then you have copies of all that information.
You have all those copies. If you could put it in a, they do have these fire safe
they have
things
those
that we
safe
showed
bags.
Safe bags. Have that. Those are easy to grab, so make sure you've got it in a place where you can grab it and go with it, because I really recommend you take those with you. So you may not find it when you go back to your home if something happens.
You want to put your Social Security cards and your kids' socials in there too. And
exactly.
All that stuff.
Things like that, maybe even an alternate ID or something that could be in there that you could actually have that one, because they're going to ask for IDs, and there's going to be things that if you go to get a renewed ID, like a driver's license, that you still need.
Okay, so that wraps up our first segment. Come back and join us for the next segment, and we'll learn more about food-related issues with preparedness.
Everyone deserves a decent place to live.
Everyone.
Decent shelter is something we all need to thrive. Through shelter, we empower. Visit Habitat.org to provide help to families like these today.
Welcome back to Family Lifestyles. And we are back. We're going to discuss some nutrition planning for preparedness and response with Janarae Conway.
Yes, yes. When we're putting together a disaster kit, a lot of people, when you mention having canned food, and they're thinking, well, how am I going to carry all of that with me? Well, you put things in a grab-and-go kit as far as nutrition is concerned, but you want to have things like this so that if electricity does go out, you've got non-perishable items that you can still cook using a camp stove or grill outside the home, and keeping in mind that you want to be safe about that. So, yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about National Canned Food Month, and I know that this is something that the Extension Office is very involved in. So I was looking up information and found recipes on UK's website. So it definitely, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be a perfect thing for the two of us to talk about.
Yes, the Kentucky Extension Nutrition Education Program and the FNEP program, they focus on providing nutrition education and focusing on low-income individuals, people with children in the home, or people who are eligible. And the goals are to help people think about having balanced meals in affordable ways, and a lot of times that does involve canned food because it is shelf stable and it's not going to spoil. So you're not going to waste your money buying something that you might not have time to prepare that might spoil before you have time to eat it. Also, people who have limited ways to cook. You know, a lot of our recipes focus on using alternative cooking methods or ways to have foods that don't require a lot of preparation or cooking that are still nutritious.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that you want to be mindful when a disaster does happen, is that these are also the folks that are going to have issues in getting food that maybe, get it replaced, and this is a good way to kind of teach everybody to look at that we do need to consider canned food.
Absolutely. And when we're thinking about canned food, a lot of times when we're asking people to who are donating to food banks and things like that, to try to get the cans that have the pull top lid.
Yes.
Because not everyone has access to a can opener. I know a can opener seems like a small thing, but many people just don't have them. And if they get cans from the food bank that require a can opener, then they may be challenged.
And that's one of those things that we really encourage people to put in their disaster kit, is to have that can opener, not an electric can opener, one of those manual ones that you will be able to use. And if you're elderly, you've got arthritis, there are can openers out there that actually are designed for folks that do have issues with their hands.
Absolutely, and if you are challenged with arthritis, that might even be hard for you to get a pull top lid off.
Exactly, and that's even something over the years, you gather these things when you go visit these places that have free things. And one of the things they had was actually a bottle opener for the twist-off bottles. But it also had on the end something that would hook on here and pull it open. So there are devices out there even for people who have issues with these pull tops, because that way they can get underneath there and help pull it up.
So if you're helping your elderly family member put together a kit, that might be something. If you know that they have weakened hands because of arthritis, that might be a tool that you might want to throw in there.
Yeah, make sure that you've got that in there. And when you're being prepared for an emergency, I'm also, in looking at this, I was on their website, I was realizing it wouldn't be a bad idea to print off some of these recipes, put them into your kit so that you have them available as well.
With the ingredients.
With the ingredients that are here. And on some of these, you may have some, for an example, it says minced garlic. Garlic and onions is one of those that will store at fairly well, last a long time if you keep them in a cool, dry, dark place. So
you can also buy the dehydrated onions.
Yes.
You can buy dehydrated garlic. You can buy the chopped garlic that's sealed in a jar and just kind of get a smaller jar so that when you open it, if you don't have refrigeration, you can use it all for a recipe or two. I mean, there's lots of options.
Yes, there is.
Garlic powder, onion powder, shelf stable.
Exactly.
Lightweight.
And even if you use those spices, something I was thinking about, because in meal prep, sometimes when you're prepping, you go ahead and measure out those spices and mix everything together anyway.
Yeah, with the dry
So why not
ingredients.
just put those dry ingredients in a Ziploc bag, double Ziploc,
Yeah.
and put them with your ingredients for that recipe. Like what I brought today is a recipe that I use a lot called white chili. And I did not bring the spices with me. I didn't grab those, but that's part of the reason why I brought the dried onions. It calls for chopped onions. Well, if you don't have them, have some dried onions available. Broth and then beans. Now this particular one would do a vegetarian style, but you can add canned chicken to it.
Okay, yes.
And because that was another version of this same recipe was to do canned chicken. And so you can have chicken chili or a vegetarian chili.
Nice.
And using those spices.
So you have options.
Yes, you have options. And that's what you want to look at too when you're putting together. Think of things that people will eat. We all know that most of our kids are going to eat mac and cheese.
Right.
You know, some people, and I will say I'm one of those, canned chili has got too much spice in it for
Okay.
us, but it's perfect for my husband and my son.
Yeah.
So let them have that, I'll fix this.
Absolutely.
You know.
And you also want to think about the food groups. You want to try to have, the major food groups represented. You want
Yes.
protein, whether it's vegetarian protein with beans and rice, things like that, or meat protein with, you can get the canned or the bagged pre-seasoned even tuna and chicken. There's a lot of options available now.
Yes.
There's also a lot of options available for pre-cooked things that are in the bags, and it says to heat it in the microwave, but in a pinch you could open up that bag of rice and you could eat it out of the bag. Those bags where it's partially cooked.
Yes.
So maybe having some options like that just in case you are caught somewhere where there are no options for heating and cooking at all. Have some things that you can open and eat without heating.
Yes, exactly.
And that combine ideally 2 or 3 food groups.
Yes.
So you're kind of hitting all those bases. But even thinking about fruit, you can get dried fruit, canned fruit. Fruit is a healthy snack if you've got kids and they're really just antsy. Instead of loading them up with candy and sugar, which is going to be counterproductive, give them some fruit
Yes.
that has some fiber in it as well.
Yes.
That's going to kind of satisfy their sweet tooth, yet also provide nutrition.
Yes, and something just to remind folks, if you do have diabetes, be careful about the dried fruits.
Yes.
Only keep to that quarter cup. I don't have diabetes yet, thank goodness, but I'm one that's really bad. You give me a dried cranberries and I'll sit down and can eat the whole
handfuls.
Yeah, I can
It's
eat the whole
easy to
bag.
do.
It's like, no, stick to that quarter cup, go measure it out, stick to what you measured out.
Absolutely.
It's hard to do, I know.
And you can also get like trail mix that combines nuts and also you
Yes.
need to watch serving sizes because of calories with that.
Yes.
But at least that you still get the sweet from the dried fruit, but you also get some protein and some
Exactly.
other things from the
Yeah.
nuts in there. So and that's also pretty shelf stable.
Yep. And keep in mind allergies that you might have in the house too when you're going to, and that's why I say for folks, look at what you use daily, what you normally use, and get those items canned or a non-perishable way to where you can put it back. And again, check it every 6 months. You want to rotate things out. That's why I say that's another reason to get what you normally
Use
get
because
and
then you
use.
can use those things
Right,
when they
you
get
can pull
close
it
to
out.
expiration.
Yes, exactly.
And then put fresh in.
And yes, exactly, and just trade things out.
So water also, you want to consider water. How much is it?
Yes.
1 gallon per
1
day
gallon.
per person, right?
Yep.
So thinking about that can take up a lot of space, but that has to be taken into consideration.
And remember, that's not just water for drinking, but it's water for cooking
Washing utensils.
and washing. Yes.
So if you put these things together into a small kit, you can be well prepared for. I think the goal is 3 days. So thinking
Yes.
about that.
72 hours.
And come back and join us for the final segment, and we will learn more about preparedness and response.
Sometimes one moment changes everything. One song, one game, one mission. Visit Make-A-Wish online to help grant more life-changing wishes.
Welcome back to Family Lifestyles for our final segment on this month's disaster preparedness themes with Janarae Conway. And Janarae, what are we going to discuss for this final segment?
For the final segment, we're going to talk about, since March is when St. Patrick's Day is, March is also when we usually start our severe weather as far as thunderstorms and those kind of things, although that does seem to always be year-round. But March is technically the kickoff of severe thunderstorms and that kind of severe weather. So basically, we're going to be focusing on a campaign called It's Not Luck. Okay. Which kind of, again, taking that St. Patrick's theme and looking at March is a good time to be prepared for severe weather and don't leave disaster preparedness to chance. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the disaster preparedness. We talked a little bit about your plans a while putting together plans. When you're putting those plans, know what your risks are. Most of us know that severe thunderstorms is one of our big risks. We do have winter storms that occur, and those are considered severe at times too. Yeah. And then we also have, along with the thunderstorms, we a lot of times in the spring not only get hail, but you get flooding, you've got lightning, and the potential for tornadoes, or at least high winds. Because I'm going to say, has it been almost, I guess it'll be 2 years this March that we had a windstorm that came through and took out a lot of trees. I know I've still got them laying down because they're not in areas that they're blocking anything. Yeah. So, we do get high winds, straight line that can topple things, particularly if the ground's wet. Those trees are
if they're paired with heavy rain.
Yes.
Yeah. It hurts the trees.
So making sure that you know what those risks are. And of course, we talked a little bit about building your kit. So
can I just hark to the trees? If you have a lot of large old trees in your yard, around your home or near an outbuilding or something, you might want to consider trimming branches and things like that, so that it helps make it less likely that a branch or something will take out, your outbuilding or your home.
Or fall on the home.
Break your windows.
Yes. During that, the May storm that we had a year ago, last year, I have a co-worker's parents, they were all out of town and they came home to a tree
on the house.
Laying on the house.
And that's another thing, when you're planning on where you're going to go, if you feel the winds shaking your house and you're like, maybe we should get to a safer spot, think about where those large trees are. Yes. And if they were to fall, what part of your house would they fall on? Mm-hmm. And if it's, if where you're planning on going is in a spot where the tree might fall on your house, it's probably not the ideal location.
And that's why it's really a good idea to think about having 3 locations.
Yes.
Where you're going to go. And I would consider one of those being outside of the home, and that could be a shelter, a storm shelter that might be close to your neighborhood, maybe a friend's house that's got a basement if you don't have a basement, but having those 3 locations so that you have those alternate options. Exactly. And so when you're knowing your risk, what we look for and hazards in our area, you've got 3 basic categories of natural, technological, and man-made. Although technological could kind of come under the man-made because technology is man-made. But some things to kind of think about with that is that a lot of your natural things that happens is the weather.
Yes.
Lightning can start fires, even in the home. But a home fire or something that maybe someone has a campfire, an ember from a campfire, those things are going to be man-made.
Right.
And of course your technological is going to be more related to your cyber attacks, your electricity going out, and some of these all happen together.
Right.
So.
And some of the extreme weather that we're having lends to those technological failures. So if you live somewhere like Texas last year, I remember in the winter, it got way colder than it ever, had on record. It broke records.
Yes.
And their system, the way it was set up for providing water and stuff, were centralized hubs, and they froze. And so many, mass amounts of people didn't have services because certain components weren't technologically up for having 0-degree weather for 3 or 4 days.
And keep that in mind with even the electrical grid. When it gets down as cold as it is, there actually is a lot more energy that is being pulled because we are trying to stay warm.
Yes.
And we're trying to keep things cold that need to be cold, but yet things that need to be warm need to stay warm.
Yeah, keep your pipes from freezing.
And keeping pipes from freezing and those kind of things. So, you know, in the wintertime, those are things to keep in mind. During the spring, as we start getting into the warmer climates, we start getting a little bit more of that cold air and warm air colliding, and that's when you get the severe thunderstorms. And your severe thunderstorms can happen, you know, any time of the year, but it's from March until, you know, sometime in the fall, because we
had thunder snow. We had thunder snow.
We had thunder snow this
winter.
year. That's exactly
it's
right.
Pretty rare.
Yeah, this winter we did. So with severe thunderstorms, keep in mind heavy rain, which can cause flash flooding as well as flooding. And the difference of those is that flash flooding is very quickly done, you know, more commonly, you will see this on the roadways.
Yeah, we have a lot of low water crossings in
Low
our
water
area.
crossings, yes.
And that's where if flash flooding will make it so that you can't get across.
Yes. And then hail is also something that is produced in the thunderstorms, and that's because of how the ice is going back up and, you know, thawing and goes back. It keeps going back and forth. High winds, tornadoes will come because of high winds, and then you also have lightning that does occur, and lightning can cause other issues, you know, if it strikes your home or if it's dry when lightning occurs. And lightning is a leading cause of injury and death from weather-related hazards, so we don't want to discount that. It does happen. With flooding, you've got to keep in mind, do you live in a flood-prone area? If you do, make sure you've got two ways out. Always head to higher ground. And it may be one of those things that your home's sitting on higher ground and the water's all around you. So if that is going to be the case, you need to make sure you've got your supplies at home.
Right.
Well, we talked about the canned foods, making sure you have things to get by without electricity, things that are, you know, that you don't have to cook or you can eat lukewarm.
Another thing to think about with flooding is a basement is probably not the ideal.
Exactly.
Even if there's winds and things, if water is, you know, your basement tends to get water in it, you need to think about that as well.
And that's why, you know, too, when you're out, if there's a tornado warning, you need to seek shelter, and they say, you know, make sure that you don't want to stay in your car, you want to get down, but be careful where you're getting because of flash flooding, because there's also rain associated with that tornado. Absolutely. So if you get down in the ditch, there's that strong possibility that that's going to rise. Yeah. And speaking of sheltering from tornadoes, I want to add this in here. Overpasses are not the place to be.
Okay.
That is not a shelter. You can be sucked out by the tornado.
Okay.
So at that point, it's probably safer to be in your car with a seatbelt on than it is to be outside of your car,
under an overpass.
Under the overpass. So just keep that in mind. And that's just kind of a similar reason why you don't want to be in the crawl space of your home, because you can be sucked out of there too.
Right.
And those are things to kind of really keep in mind when it comes to tornadoes. With things like flooding, tornadoes, and lightnings, one of the things is receiving those alerts. That's why we constantly talk about a weather radio or having those apps on your phone. Red Cross has an app, FEMA has an app. There are all kinds out there. The other thing I want to mention about alerts and really encourage folks in your county is to call your emergency manager and see if they have a county-wide alerting system. Many of them do.
Yes.
It could be
Metcalfe County has the big siren too.
And then there's the big sirens. Know what those sirens are and know what to do when those sirens and when you get those alerts.
Right.
So making sure that you're planning for those. And then of course have those supplies. We can't really stress this enough. You have your plan, you've got your supplies, you know what your hazards are, and you're being informed by having the alerts.
Yes, and one thing, if you have children, try to throw a pack of Uno cards or something, because everyone is going to be scared, and it does help to have a small distraction.
Exactly.
So thank you for joining us today, and come back next time for Family Lifestyles.
Yes.